Would I accomplish this?
To do what?
To get the point across in a short time.
Well, I would say that if you're being confronted with these arguments, you could say, well, but these things which you're now regarding as not so important, data and so on, are the very basis of your own personal individual life. And if you don't protect them right now, and if you don't try to prevent the state or somebody from intercepting them and misusing them, then that is just the very beginning of what's of the loss of all these values and of all these.
Yeah. Okay, it's still a bit abstract. I need a real life example. Maybe would be helpful. So.
Yeah, I mean, to give a really short answer, I've tried to put this in this general thesis that surveillance limits space, you know, but I mean, many things still have to develop. You still have to say that these psychological consequences still, you could say that these psychological consequences are there, that you will always have in the back of your head, you will always have the knowledge that somebody does use these data and that somebody does look into these data, and that's just the beginning of it. So you can tell the people that they will really have to watch that for I don't know, it's not very, I don't know how to really put it in one clear sentence.
Okay. Yeah.
A website? No, not a, well, from my institute, but there's not much on there.
So my question would be like, crime and all those things, surveillance is meant to deal with kind of social problems. And surveillance looks like a technical solution to those things. And back in the days, we used to say that there is no such thing like a technical solution to social problems. And if we say, and I got that this was your suggestion, that we abolish surveillance, it would be a technical solution for our fear not being able to find a way as a society to deal with the risks of surveillance. So my point is, aren't we like every right decision has as a conditional the possibility in itself that we can make wrong decisions. So basically the point is, are we allowed to abolish surveillance for our fear of the consequences of making wrong decisions? Wouldn't it be better to raise awareness for the risks and stuff like this? So I mean, we have police, we have military, and still we manage as a society up to now to deal with the risks of all those possibilities that they can misuse. And yeah, this is the question. So is it naive to give a technical answer to a social problem once again?
Well, I mean, in a way, it's the technical answer to the social problem. I think that the social problem is technologically has a technological reason in the surveillance case, you know, because the political measures which are currently being instantiated by surveillance wouldn't be possible without the technology. So that really is a political act which is only possible through technology and can only be realized by technology. So the question, in a way, it's not like a social problem which has to be solved by technology, but it's a techno-social problem, a techno-political problem which has to be encountered by techno-political countermeasures, and by raising awareness particularly of the fact that this social problem is caused by technology. And that, I believe, is a very substantial thing which is still lacking in the public mind, this awareness that really political acts and many of our actions are actually only possible due to the technologies, and that they would be possible in a different way, and a different world in a way would be possible if the technologies would change.
Right, I think there is actually a very simple practical argument that you can give. I've read an article this morning about a US insurance company profiling their clients for their glycemic index, their cholesterol index, and changing the fees that they pay according to these kinds of data. Now imagine in a surveillance world if the state, for instance, profiled what kind of trading you do in terms of e-banking and investment, and if they found out that you take lots of risky investments and you're apt to lose all your money in a crash, that might affect your credit rating and thereby make you unable to take out loans and have a credit card and so on, if that kind of data were collected. So I think that's one of the practical, very, very practical arguments against that kind of surveillance.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. I mean, that's basically this argument with the socio-economical thing which is being discussed, that really data has been given too much power and too much importance to data, and that this importance really has to be leveled down, as it is also a hypothetical process which is underlying that. So that's really a very substantial argument, and it's being used actually in some juridical debates already to tackle this problem of profiling. But there are of course a lot of, in the juridical discussions, there are a lot of problems because all these technologies are not yet really established in the law, and it's tough to deal with them. So especially as they're being globalized, and you can also wiretap these processes from some country in Malaysia or something, and where the laws just don't count.
My impression from this presentation was if you want to compress it, then you have to concentrate on the point that surveillance only supports what the owner wants. So current surveillance is from the government, and the government wants you to comply with the law. And just imagine, first the terrorists go away, then crime goes away, and then your car goes away just because you parked your car in the wrong spot for 1 minute to just head over to the shop. So that may be possible. Do you want to comply completely with the law?
Yeah, but that is sort of a bad argument, because then
Yeah,
you're
okay,
asking...
but just for you to imagine what it would lead to. So, and if the government changes, the law changes, then, well, you're fucked up.
Yeah, and I mean, really, the ownership of surveillance infrastructure is not limited to the government, you know. I mean, also big companies could own this stuff, and other people with really crappy, shady interests could just cough up an infrastructure and use your data, use the knowledge that they gather from you against you. I mean, probably the state enforcing laws is always a bad example, because you're always saying, like, well, do you really want the state to enforce its laws? And that's always like, I mean, I have to in a way, but...
Yes, there's some little things that we can actually do, because as you said, as someone said, it's social and technological. And some funny things, because we are hackers, so we do funny things, right? Can be done to make our point, such as getting Christmas decoration in the metro station and circling the CCTV, not preventing them to function, just decorating them. And suddenly you see that it's packed with something like 10 to 20 surveillance camera in something as wide as here. And people are shocked. They laugh, but they see that actually there's plenty of cameras that are designed to disappear in the urban environment. And this is a hack too, because you show to people that actually these things are pervasive and everywhere and massive. And that freaks people out and raise awareness. And I think that's our role in terms of whistleblower, to raise the alarm and say that's a problem and a social problem, but with hacks, with things that everybody can do, easy, are fun. And I really think that's typically where we stand. Find other way to get the message through.
Yeah, sure. No, that's a very important thing to really show people how ubiquitous the surveillance infrastructure already is, and to give them an impression, because the cameras are hidden, you know, and the tech substructures are hidden. You don't really feel that you're being surveilled all the time. And this, to raise awareness, certainly very largely consists of awakening this feeling that people really are constantly surveilled. But then still, I believe that you still have to accompany this with some rock-solid arguments on why that is bad, you know. I mean, just to say, I don't like it, is not really a very good argument in some sort of public discussions aiming to get this whole issue politicized. So, but yes, I mean, raising awareness is certainly a very important and very actual thing to do at the moment.
Is this okay? Not exact. One example is not exactly about the surveillance, but similar topic. In Poland, we have currently lustracja. It's mirroring or something. It's meant for people in the power, government, and so on to confess whether or not they were cooperating with previous regime before '89. And in the very beginning, in the early 90s, it was that only members of parliament, president, and so on would have to confess whether or not they were cooperating with communist regime. And there was some political discussion, but everybody agreed that, oh, if they won't confess, so they will be. Previous regime agents will be able to blackmail them, oh, do this political act, or we will tell everybody that you were a spy or something like that. And recently there was a change of government in Poland, and new government had made institution called National Memory Institution that was given access to all data gathered by all secret services and so on, and each institution was to tell whether or not this confession was true. And also they brought in a set of people that we would have to confess, not only members of parliament, but in the first, members of local governments and city councils and so on. And next version of this act was that teachers, journalists, civil service and so on. So it was estimated that about 1 million people would have to confess whether or not they were cooperating.
Oh, really?
Yes, and it was in May, or the deadline for all this confession was May 15th, and the trick was that government was requiring to confess, and government was telling whether or not this person confession was true, and government was deciding in which way to check these confessions, because if you have 1 million people to check, you won't be able to do this at once. So opposition parties were to put this act to Constitutional Court to check whether or not it's according to the Constitution to require this, because if this institution made to check if you told the truth in your confession, if they told that it is untrue, you would be forbidden to not to vote, but to be chosen to parliament and so on for 10 years. So it's a very long period. So opposition parties were to put this act into Constitutional Court, and it wasn't sure that court will be able to decide whether or not it is according to Constitution before the deadline. And court said that they will they will be able to do that. But on the 14th of May, day before court would to decide, this institution, National Memory Institute or something, told, oh, we just